Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of our originally created series, My Story. This is episode number 11 and the final episode of Series 2. A.C.E Podcast Nation, of course, your home to many great shows in the series, featuring top guests, expert analysts and more. We do lots of live and recorded shows. My Story, like all our other shows in series, is available in video format, youtube.com/AcePodcastNation. Please do give us a subscribe, click that bell for notifications, and of course if you prefer your podcast in audio form, all the usual podcast radio platforms, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, too many to list, but just search Ace Podcast Nation and there's well over 400 shows with lots of interesting people on lots of different subjects. The My Story series is unique as we take our guests through their life and career from their upbringing all the way to present day as they share stories and anecdotes along the way. Series 1 featured actors, footballers, broadcasters, authors and more. Series 2's been no different. We've had Gary Boatsy Clark, we've had cricketer Luke Fletcher, we've had ex-footballers Andy Campbell and David Giles, actor and filmmaker Johnny Owen, and of course Shed 7 frontman Rick Witter. And I'm delighted to welcome today. He is an actor who you will have seen in The Business, The Firm, The Rise of the Foot Soldier series, London Heist and many more great films. Plus he's wrote and released his own book, Hi Dildy D, From the Streets of Bermondsey to the Lights, Camera, Action. I'm delighted to welcome, it is of course, Mr. Eddie Webber. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, Simon. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, mate.
Apart from the obvious.
Yeah, well, that's it, mate. It's been a weird 18 months, haven't it? It's been a lot to adapt to for everyone, I suppose. How have you found it?
Well, to tell you the truth, Simon, I found it all a little bit of an illusion. All of it, really. It's a bit too. Don't know. I can't sort of plug into the reality of it all, really. To tell you the truth, I know there's this stuff ravishing the world or whatever, but you know, I've not been really affected, or I don't know anyone who's been affected, or you know, I just find it quite surreal, you know.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? Like if you haven't been affected, or you don't know anyone who's been affected,
yeah,
then it is difficult to get your head around it then, especially when it's having such a massive impact on people's lives. You know what I mean? Like it's been a long year, hasn't it? Like I got 3 teenagers, the oldest one's just he's waiting for his GCSE results now, and his whole final year of sort of high school has really not been the same as what everyone else before him and after him will experience. Like he's missed out on a lot. Missed out on all the the parties at the end of the year.
Yeah.
he's only really seen his girlfriend. He's seen a couple of friends, but that's hard work for a 16-year-old, let alone for us older folk who've been sort of stuck at home for a large portion of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's the young people that are going to suffer through all this, really, isn't it? Really,
yeah,
we've had our time, and because I was at the start of all this, I've got locked down in India. I was in India.
fucking
I mean, I go to India quite often every year on my own sort of thing with a rucksack and just go travelling about India. And at the beginning of last year, when it all started, I was out in Goa and I was locked down for 2 months. Couldn't move at all out there, and I mean, the lockdown that happened out there was absolutely so extreme. I mean, we couldn't get no food, no water, no rice. Everyone was trying to get home. No one could get any flights home. The government said that they was doing as much as they possibly could to get people home, which they wasn't doing as
yeah,
much as they could, sort of thing. They ripped us all off to get us home, money wise and all that, and then come back to this country, and it was just like, well, the thing was, when we was being locked down in India and everything, we was watching the TV because the only sort of source of news that we had was the BBC World Service,
yeah,
and the whole world was going crazy. And yet we was looking at England and there was rugby matches going on, everyone in the tubes, everyone. And we just couldn't understand it.
yeah. Well, it was that thing, wasn't there? There was quite early on where Boris Johnson was like, he was there. I'm not going to stop shaking hands with people, and I'm going to
Yeah,
do about this. And then 2 weeks later, some people would say conveniently, I don't know,
yeah,
but he got it then, didn't he? But in like the UK generally, like they were so far behind other
yeah.
places in reacting, and then it's just had this like knock-on effect then because they were so slow doing whatever they needed to do. Everybody else has had to do everything for longer. But touch wood, mate, that everything's going to get back to normal
Yeah,
now.
well, the thing is, really, I'm just hoping because my son has got a band, he's in a band called Comforts, and he's got a little gig on the 5th of July with the K's, the
Yeah,
band
yeah,
the K's, and I'm just hoping that can go on, because a lot of artists have really struggled over the last sort of 16, 17 months and not been able to do anything, and it's almost like if you are in that game, if you're a musician or you're an actor or something like that, if you're not working when times are normal, you're in a state of sickness anyway, because your creativity needs to come out or whatever. But now it's just been absolutely devastating.
yeah, big time. Like I've had a couple of bands on, and like a rapper, and obviously I had Rick Witter from Shed 7, and not being able to play live is a big thing for musicians, isn't it? Um, I guess it is what it is. Hopefully, mate, that this is it now. We won't have to go back into lockdown again after all this is
I
over.
can't see it, mate. I mean, I've got two movies that I've done before lockdown that's supposed to have been released. Well, one of them was supposed to be released last year. I've got a script that is with Ray Burdis that we were supposed to shoot. So this COVID is just like completely tore the arse out of it.
Yeah, big time. I was thinking about that the other day, like how many films of which would have made good money have
Yeah,
suffered because of it. Like even like the like the massive like the Marvel films and stuff like that.
James
They've
Bond.
Yeah, James Bond, like Marvel are releasing what was it Black Widow, which would have
Yes,
been that's going straight onto streaming. Like
unbelievable.
that's do you imagine how much money that cost to make, and then they're going to put it straight onto Disney for probably 12 quid or something for people to buy. It's
Well, you
frightening,
probably
mate.
make more money over the streaming, really, to tell you the truth, because they seem to have monopolized that all that Marvel stuff, Disney. And I know for a fact, there's lots of people that will sort of, there's millions of people around the world that stream that one from Marvel,
Oh yeah,
to say.
100%.
And I mean, look, going to the cinema is a beautiful, beautiful thing, but these days you've got so much technology indoors that you can sit in the comfort of your own home and watch a nice little film, you know?
Yeah, and I think like that's the thing actually. Like for me, if I was going to take like my missus and my three kids to the cinema, you'd be with them with tickets and
60
popcorn.
quid,
You're
yeah.
talking 60, probably more than that quid.
70 quid,
Whereas
yeah.
I could go and buy the film, buy all that stuff, probably order a
Exactly.
pizza, and it would still be less than that.
No,
So I do
absolutely.
see.
I'm going to the cinema Saturday for the first time, and I'm quite looking forward to it actually because there's some films you've got to see in the cinema, haven't
Oh
isn't
yeah,
there?
100%.
You know, I'm going to
Well,
see that Quiet Place too.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know that film, but I don't know. I mean, you know, it's okay if you've got all these sort of Avenger movies and all that with these sort of £1 billion budgets and all that, but the independent film industry has really suffered, you know,
Oh,
for all
I
this.
can only imagine
I
like
mean,
the
when we done the Foot Soldier, the last Foot Soldier film, I mean, you had to have a COVID test on set, everyone every 2 days, you know, and
mm,
it's costing absolute fortunes because you've got to have a doctor on set, sort of thing, that's charging 100 quid a pop
oh yeah.
every test, sort of thing, and not all independent films can afford that. I mean, it was lucky it was Carnaby because Carnaby are sort of quite established, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I don't know, mate. The world's a different. I think COVID now really has become quite an industry in itself.
Yeah,
You
of
know?
course, yeah. Well, they monetize everything, don't they?
Yeah,
The government and the higher ups, I suppose. Soon as it was about, you could see the companies who were producing the vaccines. It
yeah.
was almost like a race to get them out, wasn't it, and sell them and get
But
that.
it's not only that. If you go on holiday, if four of you go on holiday and you haven't had that needle, you know, you've got 150 quid a test. So that's sort of what's that 4 times? You know, that's one, that's three, that's 600 quid. You know, on one end, and when you get to the other end, you've got to have another test, which is another 600 quid. So you're 1,200 quid down
You haven't
before
even
you even
spent anything
start
on
your
the holiday.
holiday.
Yeah,
And,
and
and
that's
who's
if you haven't got to, and if you haven't got to isolate as well for like a week or something when you get
you
there.
know, it's just money, and I can't see them sort of wanting to sort of get rid of that income, the government and all that. You know, but as I said, it's an industry. There's a lot of people earning a lot of money. Why would they want to get rid of all this
Yeah,
COVID? You know, when they're earning that much money.
yeah, they're not exactly renowned for their humanitarian.
Integrity, I think the
Yeah,
word is.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Um, right, mate. What I like to do with these is basically I take my guests right back to the start, so to speak, and just basically ask where did it all begin for Eddie Weber? Tell us a bit about your upbringing and just stuff like that growing up.
Yeah, well, I was born in a place in South London called Bermondsey, which was a very, very sort of working class area where, you know, the main source of employment was dockers. You know, it was a dockland. So my dad was a docker. Everyone, sort of, all my family were all dockers, sort of thing. And it just started there, really, Simon.
Yeah, you got like any siblings, mate, or anything like that?
Yeah, I've got two brothers and a sister. You know, none of them went into the sort of arts like I did, sort of
Mm.
thing. So there were six of us. You know, we were sort of, we grew up in a certain amount of poverty. You know, as you did in them days, because I mean, I've written this book, and I speak a lot about that in the book. You know, my dad was a bit of a fiddler. You know, in them days, he had to go out and get money and feed the family and all that by
Yeah,
hook or by crook, you know. So, and I mean, the majority of dads were in them days were sort of a little bit crooked in themselves, you know. By they had to be, sort of thing, you know. And where my dad was a docker, you know, the docks were full of goodies, so he used to sort of subsidise his wages with a little bit of hooky stuff, sort of thing. So, and I think that reflects on the kids as well, you know, because we grow up in an environment where that seems to be okay to do. So as the years go by, you sort of slip into that yourself, you know.
Yeah. So, like, as you were growing up into like your teenage years, and that was acting and like the arts something which you were sort of in, you were definitely going to go that way, or was there sort of
No,
other things you were interested in, good at?
no. Well, I remember sort of always wanted to play the guitar because I was a really big Beatles fan. You know, I
Mm.
used to love the Beatles. I remember sort of sitting on my balcony in one of the flats that we lived in, and we used to have these little portable 45 players where it was like a radio thing, and you used to stick the single in the top and play it. And I remember sort of sitting on my balcony playing "She Loves You" and all that by the Beatles, you know. So music sort of uh, entered into me, sort of thing. So when I was
Mm.
about 13, I asked my parents to get me a guitar, which they got me a guitar. But the trouble is, it was so extreme where we lived in. I mean, it's different with like with John Lennon and Paul McCartney and whatnot. When they first sort of started them in the 50s, when they started getting in touch with music, that's all there was, you know.
Mm.
It was almost like when punk hit Britain in 1976. You know, Elvis hit the world in 1956, and it was so sort of post-war that music, yes, you didn't have to have support. You just
No.
loved the music, and there was millions of people wanting to start sort of bands. And when it was my era and where I grew up, there wasn't really that much support for people that wanted to go into the arts, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got this guitar, and I just couldn't get on with it, you know. So I went to school, and there was no guitar lessons. There was nothing there. So I put it aside really and picked it up again when I was sort of 16. So I don't know what I never knew what the future would hold for me ever. I
Mm.
mean, I thought I was going to be a criminal, you know,
Mm.
than anything. You know, that was the only way out that I could see, other than being taking an apprenticeship or being a bricklayer or being a plumber or working in a factory and all that sort of stuff, you know. So no, the arts never featured at all. Although I loved the music side of it all, it never really featured as a career sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's what about football? You used to watch football? I know you're a
I used to
Millwall
go
fan,
to
aren't you?
Millwall. Yeah, I used to go to Millwall when it was proper, you
It
know,
was
in the late
naughty back then, mate,
60s.
wasn't it?
With Harry Cripps and Eamon Dunphy, Keith Weller, you know, Barry Kitchener, when the den was a proper, there weren't that much violence really until it went to the sort of early 70s, and then it all started kicking off. And I didn't really, it wasn't worth it to me, you know, to
Yeah.
see West Ham and Millwall doing what they was doing every time they met with each other, you know. And I'd speak a lot with Cass about all this, you know, because Cass was sort of in charge of the West Ham sort of thing, and there was another bloke, another black guy who was in charge of the Millwall thing called Tiny. You know, they
Mm.
was the two, and they used to look for each other. You know, when the two sides met, but the violence was too much for me. I couldn't.
Yeah.
A football match wasn't worth that to me. You know, but I used to love the sort of tradition of going to Millwall, the old den, you know, when it
Mm.
was in Coldblow Lane, and coming out, going with my uncle to watch Millwall and coming out and having some chips and crackling and all that, you know, after the match, or a meat pie. I love that tradition, and I loved watching that old school football mentality as well, where people were smoking on the sidelines and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I'd always been a Millwall supporter, and if there was a team, it's Millwall sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So, do you still ever go down and watch them at any point now, or?
Not really. No, I don't. I haven't for a long, long time. Football's just when it started become sort of corporate and started
Yeah.
becoming silly. That's when it's sort.
It's
You
hard
know,
work now. I think I
I
find
can't
it really hard
justify
work.
it. I can't justify people earning 180 grand a week. I can't do that
It's
with all
mental, mate,
sport.
isn't it? Mental,
With
mate.
all sport, they used to earn 22 quid a week when I was going football.
But do you know, like even like probably I'm going back like maybe 10 years or something. I remember saying to like friends of mine and that, like, how can you justify paying footballers like 100 grand a week at the time
Yeah,
when you've got nurses literally scratching their ass to pay their rent and feed themselves, and doctors and stuff, and you're paying a footballer like millions of pounds a year. And I just, that was when I kind of lost a bit of,
exactly.
just lost it. I felt like, for me anyway, with Cardiff, like I just lost a bit of affinity with it. Like probably about 10 years ago, like maybe a
Yeah,
bit longer. Like the early 2000s, and I used to love it. Going to the football with my mates, and like you say, you have these little traditions, going to the pub afterwards or
yeah,
before, and
yeah.
it just didn't feel the same, I guess. And
No.
then once you lose that, I think it is difficult to go back to it. So like, just very quickly, when Cardiff changed, when they did that rebrand a few years ago, and they changed the colours and the badge, and it felt very, very forced and corporate. I was
Yeah,
like, no, I don't
yeah,
need to do that. And I know, lots and lots of people did. But what happened in that year or so was that on a Saturday, my habits changed. Like, I had young kids, so instead of going to the football, I was doing something else on the Saturday.
yeah.
And then when they changed, when they reversed all the rebrand and the change, and they went back, I was like, well, I'm used to doing this on a Saturday now, and never really, like, I do go now and again, but not like week in week out like I used to. And I know, some of my mates who used to go, they go and watch like non-league football, like Welsh league football now,
Yeah,
because they prefer the community feel of it. Like, and just going, they can go and they see the same people there, and they can have a beer and a smoke in the stands, and that
yeah,
it is what it is, I suppose. It's
yeah. Well,
part of the world's changing, I guess, isn't it? But it's definitely one of the more negative
like
sides
you
of it.
said, really, I live in Brighton now, so it's a lot of hassle to go to a football match
Mm,
for me. And even when I was living in Bermondsey, it was still a lot of hassle because you had to sort of, and especially when you started, because we made a movie called The Firm,
yeah,
and people will just drive you absolutely insane
I
when you
bet.
go
I
there.
can.
Like my mates Tamo and Jeff Bell and all that, when they go to football, they get driven. Not that it's a problem, because that's the sort of the life that
It
that,
comes with the
that you
territory, I
choose
guess,
to
doesn't it?
have, sort of thing. But it just seems a bit too much hassle for me, all that,
Yeah, yeah,
really. And now the people that follow Tamer and Jeb and all that, I've got nothing compared to what they sort of. Well, I don't know. It's just a lot of hassle football, really.
yeah. So how old were you then when you started to go towards sort of the acting route?
Well, I got it really, really late. I mean, there's a story around all that sort of thing. I mean, I had a band when I was about 17, 18 in London. I locked myself in my room at 16 and just learnt to play the guitars,
Mm,
and then the Sex Pistols come out in like 76, and that was it for us. We were just doing our stuff. But in between time, I've done a couple of prison sentences,
mm,
from the age of sort of 18 up until the age of sort of 22 or whatever. And then the police fabricated evidence against me in 1986 for some really heavy crimes like murder and armed robbery and
fucking hell.
attempted murder and all that. I mean, I got out of it because I was innocent,
Yeah, yeah,
and I got the alibi. I mean, it's all in my book.
yeah.
So,
I've ordered it actually, so I'm gonna have a read of that, but it
yeah, it's
hasn't
all
come
in
yet.
my book. So what happened? I got three positive identifications in a lineup
Mm,
in an identification thing for attempted murder and armed robbery. It's something that I never done. Again, as I say, I go into it forensically in my book, sort of thing. So I spent time as an A category prisoner in Wormwood Scrubs until an alibi came up, which put me somewhere else. It put me on the island, the Isle of Wight, at the time when this robbery was going on in London, and it was a cast iron sort of alibi. So I got out of that, and then I started to form a case against a DI in the murder squad and a DI in the Sweeney, the robbery squad.
Yeah.
But I had another DI from an internal investigation squad that was investigating the two of them, and someone sent me a book about Freemasonry. It was called The Brotherhood by Stephen Knight. Absolutely fascinating book. And there was a whole chapter about the police, which said, anybody above that's not in uniform in the police force, anyone who's plain clothes or like detectives and all that, they only get to that stage because they're Freemasons.
No.
Sometimes you see all these sort of old sergeants in police stations in uniform, and the only reason they're in uniform is because they didn't want to become Freemasons.
Yeah.
So certain funny things started happening, like evidence started disappearing and all this stuff. So I just got so paranoid. So I took off to Israel, and I ended up living in Israel for 2 years. And in Israel, I started on a kibbutz. I got chucked off the kibbutz, and then I formed a band in Israel. So gigged about Egypt and Israel for about 13 months. And then when I come home to England, I started another band. That fell through. And so I went into a theatre company called the London Bubble and just told them I want to be an actor. And that's where it all started, really.
That's not your average introduction into acting, is it, mate? Jesus, so that must have been proper stressful time, though. Even if you've been sort of on the outskirts of crime or whatever, to be suddenly facing serious charges like that.
Well, they wanted to put me away for 23 years, mate, and they fought hard to do that. And I was an innocent person. I never done it. I've got my views of why they done it, but to do that to someone, for no reason at all is
naughty,
is a crime in itself.
Absolutely.
Really. But I never really, when I was in jail for it, I mean, like I said, I was an ACAT prisoner, which was really, really heavy. So I used to have to go to court every week with an armed sort of escort and helicopters and just all sorts of things, which was pretty crazy in itself. And I couldn't at the time, I couldn't really connect because it was too big. So I never acknowledged my incarceration whatsoever. I never acknowledged it, and I did whatever I wanted to do in jail, because to me, I was, the crime was perpetrated against me rather than me committing the crime, sort of thing. So, but the strange thing is, really, once I sort of analyse it all, I sort of realised that if that didn't happen to me, it wouldn't put me on the road to where I went to, sort of thing. It gave me the opportunity to take the initiative to follow my passion, sort of thing. So I went to Israel. I always wanted to do travelling. This gave me an opportunity to go there and blah blah blah, sort of thing.
What was the why Israel? Why Israel? Was there a reason that particular place, or just?
Yeah. In the 70s, a friend of mine went to Israel onto a kibbutz, and I always remember him sort of a picture that he had smoking a joint on Mount Sinai, where Moses took the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And that sort of always appealed to me, and I said to him, I'd love to do that one day. And when I went to Israel, I took the same picture and sent it to him, sort of thing. The most holiest mountain there, sitting there with headphones on, listening to Hotel California and a split and looking out over the sort of Negev desert. It was beautiful. And plus, it was so far away from England. because I was so paranoid, mate. I thought they,
Mm.
I'm nicking. I had a 100% case against two really, really high up officers in two very, very big established police
Thing
sort
is, though,
of.
mate, right? Is with that is those high up police officers or whatever who've if they're willing to stitch you up for armed robbery or murder or whatever, you'd have to wonder what they would do to get out of being
Correct.
charged for doing it. Do you know
Well,
what I mean?
exactly, and that's when the Freemasonry started entering into it, all sort of
Mm.
thing. And I was really scared for my life, And I said to a couple of people, 2 weeks, about 3 weeks after I got released, I said, "Oh, I'm off, mate. I'm going. I'm going. No, stay here, nick 'em, do this." But all my instincts were saying, "This is not going to
Yeah.
turn up good. This is not going to turn out good for me." And I'd love someone to actually hear one of these podcasts one day and take this up,
Mm.
because I can't do nothing about it at the
So
moment.
no one's ever like they were never they never investigated. They never took that investigation further or nothing into it.
No, and I've read a book that has been selling with this story in it. No one's ever sort of, I mean, the corruption when I grew up with the police, because I grew up in the 80s with the police when this sort of SPG unit was around. After the
Mm.
Brixton riots, they
Yeah.
formed these sort of units that were just absolutely dastardly. They would,
No shame at all. Like no
spit you
shame.
up. They would just bash you up, fit you up, and just make your life a misery, especially in Bermondsey,
Mm.
because Bermondsey was sort of known as quite a sort of crooked area,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
everyone was at it, sort of thing. So they were the police were a plague on Bermondsey in the 80s, an absolute plague. They just run riot, almost like what the Tory party are doing today, just running riot and not
Yeah.
and not
No one's stopping them. Like they just do what
no
they
one
want.
holding them to account. So people like me, they could just pick you up and throw you in jail, and that's it. No one could say a word about it, really.
But the thing is, if you haven't got like the funds to to go and hire like a top lawyer or solicitor or whatever, or to defend yourself, you're
Well, it
screwed. You're
wasn't even
screwed,
the
didn't you?
funds. Well, it wasn't even the funds because you used to get this. What did they used to call it in them days? What was that? They subsidised you. It was called legal aid. It
Legal
was
age, yeah.
called legal aid. So you could always get this legal aid in them days, especially the sort of barristers that. I mean, it was quite beautiful, really, because when I got nicked for this and when I was on remand for it, my lawyer. I mean, I won't tell you how the alibi come about
Mm.
because read it in the book. It's a
Oh yeah,
nice
no,
little
I'm gonna
read,
like I'm wait.
It's a
Mm.
beautiful, beautiful little read. But what happened when this alibi come up? My lawyer put a private investigator onto the Isle of Wight, and there was a couple of things that happened. Once the alibi come up, I remembered where I was. It's almost at the time, sort of 4 or 5 months previous. They said to me, "What was you doing on this date a year ago?" And I don't. It's like me
No one
saying to
knows though,
you,
do they?
"What was you doing last September on the 13th of?" On the
Yeah,
13th of last September, unless you got a diary or you.
yeah. I didn't even know what I was doing last week, but that's the thing,
Well,
innit?
nowadays it's easy because you've got emails. You can just
Yeah,
go
you could
13th of
find
September
out,
and
can
see
you?
what you're doing. But in the 80s, you didn't have none of that. So
Mm.
once the alibi come about, it triggered, I was there, I was there. So my lawyer put a private investigator onto the Isle of Wight and they started, I lost the book
Mm.
when I was there, and the investigator, I left it in a taxi. So the investigator found the taxi where I left the book, and the guy still had the book in his bookcase. So it was
Yes.
it was a cast iron alibi, and it was a shame, really. And that's when I lost a bit of trust in humanity,
Mm.
and that's why I just had to fuck off. I couldn't stay in this country, and I've never felt sort of at home in this country ever since then, you know. So that's why I like to go travelling around India, you know, for 3 or 4 months every year, just
Yeah.
get out sort of thing. But I can't this year, and you know, I ain't been out of the country for 16 months, which is the longest I've been in this country for about 20, 25 years.
Jesus, you must be going stir crazy, mate. When you get into the habit of travelling for a large portion of the year, to
Yeah.
then be stuck at home, that's it's difficult, isn't it?
Oh
So
man, and then you got and then you're faced with all this sort of all this politics where you sort of know people are lying, you know, because of my experience. What happened to me, what I just told you, my sense of people lying is enhanced. You know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know I can hear, you know, because the truth holds its own mystical qualities with inside my consciousness. You know what I mean? And I
Mm.
can see they're lying, and I just can't understand why everybody can't see they're lying. You know?
Yeah, it's difficult then, isn't it? Because excuse me, sorry. The yeah, like I'm not surprised, mate. If I was in your situation, I think you'd 100% lose any faith in
Yeah,
humanity, the police, anything else. Because
yeah,
yeah, I'm not sure. If I'd have been in your situation, I'm not sure I'd have come back to the UK, mate. To be honest.
yeah. Well, you know, the destiny was sort of guiding me, you know,
Mm.
because when like I said, I went up to this little theatre company, and then I got involved with this theatre company, which was there's a funny story involved in that as well. But read it in the book, you know. And then from the theatre company, I went to sort of a drama college called Morley College, where I met Jeff Bell and Johnny Harris, and everyone was all there. And from there, I got an agent, started working in TV, and then sort of get into where I moved out to Spain for 7 years, and whilst I was in Spain, you know, I ran into Tamar when he was out there, and Tamar was told me about because he'd just finished the Football Factory, and
Yeah.
he was on to doing Nick's next movie, which was The Business. And he said to me, "Oh, fuck me, we're shooting a film out here in a couple of months' time. Give us your details. I'll give it to Nick Love." And bang, and that's how I got sort of how I got the business sort of thing, living in Spain, you know.
Yeah. And then, like you mentioned the word just then, destiny. Like, obviously because of what happened to you, you went out to Israel, and then you come back and you've gone and done the acting and the college
Yeah,
and stuff, and then because you're not comfortable or because you like to go traveling, you've gone, you're living in Spain and stuff, and then you've run into Tam Hassan, and you've got that opportunity with the business. You've done loads of the old classic UK show like TV shows as well, didn't you? Like I noticed, like you've done London's Burning and Casualty and the Detectives
yeah,
and
Birds of a
Birds of a
Feather,
Feather.
the detectives, I was working all the time on TV. The Bill, I've done the Bill about 8 times, you
Yeah, I
know.
was gonna say you done the bill, but you played a different character for like each time, didn't you?
Yes, yes,
Because I was
yes.
looking at it, they were all like listed, and it was like all these different guys. But they're bringing that back, actually, aren't they? The bill I
Yeah,
read
well,
the
the
other
funny
week.
thing is about the Bill, I was the first person because I've done one of these Bill specials, like a two-part uh, episodes, you know, two
Yeah, yeah.
episodes that led on to each other. And I played this character called Danny Castle, and it was the first time anyone ever killed someone in the Bill.
All right,
I
okay.
put a bullet in a geezer's head, you know,
Yeah.
in the Bill, the guy who was in Waterloo Road, actually. And yeah, it was a great time to build in the early 90s. I mean, for actors, because you had a lot of actors like me that come from working class environments, sort of thing.
Mm.
And you know, there was always a part for someone like us in these programs, you know,
Yeah.
because terrestrial telly was at its sort of height until Sky TV came along. You know, we was always working on telly, but then Sky TV came along, and the sort of working classes went to Sky, and the middle classes sort of stayed with the terrestrial side of it, and then reality TV started sort of hitting it, and the equity cards, our union went down the pan, and then they wouldn't pay you no more, and your wages went down, and the whole integrity of the craft went out of it, really, because you got people like, yourself, that Big Brother crap that goes on,
Oh, I
and
can't. Reality TV, mate, is like the
you
fucking scourge of television and
well,
society. I hate
exactly.
it, mate. I hate
And
it.
then what happened? These people that were doing these reality TV programs, can't act for toffee. I've not learnt their craft anywhere. Started getting cast in movies, and
Yeah.
it's just like, what's going on here? So of course, TV, they had to take another sort of pathway, because they had to then start catering to the middle classes. So all the programs that we were sort of involved in was stopped being made, really,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the jobs went, and it's still the same now, really. If you look at these BBC series and all these, they're all the same actors. You don't really. Every now and then, one of us slip into
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, it's yeah, you're right. There's a lot of the same faces, isn't it? Just sort of
Yeah,
turning up and in the same, like a conveyor belt almost of the different series, and they just
and they're all
switch
RADA
them on.
actors, they're all RADA actors. They're all these sort of actors that, the worst thing is EastEnders, really. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so many people in EastEnders. Well, not so many. There's a handful of people that are middle class people putting on Cockney accents.
Yeah. Well,
And it's just like, we're all out here. Why don't you come and get ours?
yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because like, so you got like EastEnders and the Bill in say like the 90s and the early
Yeah,
2000s. They were at genuinely good TV, which because the people who were playing the characters, it was real. Like
yeah,
they were real people. Like I was saying to my missus when the bill was announced that they were bringing it back. Like one of my favourite sort of UK TV mini series or whatever you want to call it was the episodes they done with Don Beach on
yeah,
with Billy Murray
yeah,
during the bill when he was they had like a I don't know like
yeah,
a three parter, like it was quality TV
yeah.
because he's obviously he's a phenomenal actor, isn't he? But like it's and then like you say now EastEnders and even some of the other TV programs on terrestrial TV particularly, it's very much people putting on an accent, which all right,
Yeah.
some people, some actors can put it off, and they, because they're very talented, but some can't, and it feels very forced then.
Well,
And
it's the writing also. I think a lot of these writers come from that sort of middle class environment as well. So I know, because I've got a few friends that are in EastEnders, and they
well, I was
tell
going to
me,
say
I can't
Danny's in it,
say
isn't he?
that. Not that that Danny says that to me or
No,
anything.
no,
But a
no.
lot of them just say, like, sometimes I can't say the words that are on the paper because they're just so stereotypical. All right, it's a fair cop, Gov, sort of thing. And it's just like, but hey, it sounds like sour grapes, but it's not sour grapes. It's just how it should be, really. There's a lot of great actors out there that don't get an opportunity
Do you know
to.
what it sounds to me, mate? It doesn't sound like sour grapes. It sounds like a little bit of frustration, and you correct me if I'm wrong anyway, about the loss of the craft of acting, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
But funny enough, I had Chris Johnson on, who's he's an actor, really starting to do well. He's been in a couple of independent stuff, and he's starting to gain a bit of attention, and
I
rightly
know
so.
Chris. I've done a
Yeah,
film with Chris. I've done a film with
I
him.
was
It's
going to
called.
say you
It
did.
was called On a Prayer or something.
That's right, and yeah, he's been. There was something else. It was the else. He's been. I'm sure he's been in something else which you were in, but I've a quick look now. But no, he's like proper sound guy, like really cool dude. But like he's a phenomenal actor, and it was frustrating to me to watch him not get until recently not get the opportunities that his talent deserved, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
Um, so I guess what I was going to ask you is, with like acting and films and stuff like that, and TV and maybe media generally, is it more sometimes like who you know rather than necessarily like how good you are? Because it
Well, I
feels
think
like a
that
lot of
is a part.
talented people miss
Yeah,
out.
I think that is a part of it, really, because obviously you sort of you work with a lot of directors, who like your work and they do your work, and when they're doing something else, they phone you up. Do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want to? Do you want to? I mean, the majority of movies that I've been involved with over the last sort of few years, I've never had to audition for them. It's just them.
Mm.
Hey, look, it's a lovely little role in this for you. Do you want to do it, sort of thing? Yeah,
Yeah,
love
yeah.
to do it, sort of thing. And I mean, as I said, the independent movies. Uh, it's very rare that you know uh, when you're at a level that you have to go in and audition because and you've either worked with these people before. It's like when the firm come up after we'd done the business. Nick phoned me up and said, "Look, I've just written this beautiful little part with you in mind. Do you want to
Mm.
do it?" Sort of thing. Like, yeah, of course I do. And so come along Bob out of the firm, which was a beautiful. And I was always a Gary Oldman fan, so I love that original film, the
Yeah,
Alan
yeah.
Clark one, and Scum and all that, and all them sort of little
Classic ones,
things.
yeah.
So to know that this remake is based on another character in the film rather than the Paul Anderson character, it was based
Mm.
around Callum's sort of character, and then I remember speaking to Nick, and about the family unit that we had in there, and we come up with the sort of we wanted to make a social comment rather than a football fuck film sort of thing
Yeah.
to say, you know, that not the stereotype is that these people that get involved with football violence come from dysfunctional families.
Yeah, yeah.
So we took the stance that Dom comes from a loving family, and it was just peer pressure that sort of put him into it. And sooner or later, his parents, it's breaking their hearts to see how he was going, sort of thing. But just having faith that he'll come back and not intervening so much into it. So just letting him go his own way, and
Mm.
which I think worked.
Absolutely. I think anyone who's a parent can relate to that and that feeling of helplessness
Yeah,
if the thought of watching your kids maybe make wrong decisions or
yeah,
getting in with the wrong crowd and not being pretty helpless um and also like you say, like that stereotype of like the first time you're watching the film, or the first time I'm watching the film, you're almost expecting, because of the history of that type of
yeah,
film, that the dad's going to be like a
yeah,
drunk and
yeah,
maybe knocking the missus around or the son
yeah,
around, and that never came. It was, like you say, it was a completely functional family. They cared about the kid, and
yeah.
it was really good. I thought the actor, I forget his name, who played Dom, I thought he did a really good job in that as well.
Callum
Callum.
McNabb.
Yeah, I thought he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, he's
And
a beautiful little actor. He was in the Football Factory as well.
mm,
He's a beautiful little actor, Callum.
Yeah, I think, funny enough, I had my mate asked me to ask you a question. So he said, out of all the films that you've starred in, if you could pick one where there would be a sequel and you'd star in it, what would it be and why?
Uh, Sequel. I would say Big Fat Gypsy Gangster. I mean,
Underrated film, mate, that is. I really,
oh
really love it.
mate, I mean, it could have been better because there were so many problems in the edit of that sort of thing because, you know, there wasn't enough pickup shots, which was the director's fault and all that. But I remember speaking to Ricky a little while ago, and he was bandying about that he may be writing a sequel to it, where my character in it sort of goes away in prison, and then he comes out and he's sort of like a Hare Krishna. He's a fake, and he actually joins the gang. But that's the one I would love to see a sequel to. Big Fat Gypsy Gangster. I would love, because to me, Ricky Grover is a comedy genius.
Yeah, he's so funny, mate. I remember him
Comedy genius, mate.
I remember when Bullard come on the scene. I think it's on the 11 o'clock show or something,
Yeah.
just in like little segments. Straight
Yeah.
away, you could tell he just had that comedic timing, which people, not everyone has got. Who does, even people like stand-up comics and that.
Yeah.
It's just that timing to, even if you're doing something like what he was doing, those little segments where you haven't got people responding with laughter. Is knowing, just knowing the right points and
he's a genius, mate. I don't know if you've ever seen his stand up. He's just like belly aching laughing, it's just belly aching laughing. To me, he's a man who should be recognised a lot more for his comedy. He should be doing, and again, it's all that Mock the Week and all that. It's the establishment again, this Dara O'Brien and all that. Not saying because I don't know the guy at all, but it seems to me that the apart from Mickey Flanagan, you don't get too many people from the street sort of comedians. Like Ricky should be on all them programs, and Omid should be on them programs. Why are they not? And it's sad, really.
It is. I think the thing with Mock the Week, I used to love it in the early series with when like Frankie Boyle and stuff was on it. I thought it was really funny, but like now I feel like it's really, really forced. Like the stuff they do.
It's politically correct, isn't it? It's just politically correct now. When Frankie Boyle was on it, talking about, looking at carousels in fairs and saying it's like a sushi bar for paedophiles and things like that. I mean,
people forget, like, it's just it's a joke, isn't it? And it's like the thing which frustrates me with the way comedy, particularly on mainstream TV, is going, is people seem to be forgetting. Of course, there is a line, but like people just, I feel like, have forgotten that, just to have a giggle and just laugh, like,
Well, the thing is, people condemn people like Frankie Boyle, but he's a very clever comedian. And I mean, comedy's about condemning the crime and not the victim, And if you listen to his comedy, he's condemning the people that commit the crimes. He's never having a pop at the victim sort of thing. Every now and then one slips through or whatever sort of thing. But
Ricky Gervais is the same, isn't he? The jokes he's making, he's not making them about
the victims.
The victims or the subject. He's making it about the people.
Correct.
Who are doing, the things that, and then people get offended by it as if he's doing it, and I often think that's because you haven't understood the joke, and that's not the comedian's fault. That's your fault for either not listening or not thinking about it properly, or just jumping to being offended instead of understanding what's being said.
There's these people that have just got their ears to the ground. It's like all this BLM sort of stuff. I don't really think about it too much, but it seems to me that people are not actually listening to people. They're just waiting for that moment or that little word that triggers something off, and then they jump in like lunatics. I'm not saying it's right, that movement, or I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think someone has got hold of it and started sort of moulding it and adapting it to their own sort of means, like any sort of militant, same as the National Front, same as UKIP, the same as the BNP, the BLM, all that, to me, they all sort of power into the same mist.
Yeah, and there's a group of people. There's a group of people who manipulate all those groups, which you just mentioned. They manipulate them through the media and people like this to stoke up the they basically want the working class people, the middle class people. They want all the people underneath them to be fighting amongst themselves,
Yeah,
because while they're fighting amongst themselves, they're not looking at what they're doing.
yeah.
And unfortunately, people still haven't quite got to grips with that.
Well, it's rule by division, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
this the rule by dividing people, and I'm sure that BLM, the people that are true to it, are absolutely disgusted in how the police in America have been treating them people, and I
yeah,
totally agree with it, that people can't just go around. I'm a person that's been on the other end of police sort of corruption. So I understand that, you can't just go around shooting people because they're black or whatever. You can't do that. And there's so many people that understand that, but these sort of uh, militant organisations who just sit and wait for the middle classes to take some sort of offence on something, and then they're like cuckoos, they adopt the situation and seem to make it worse, and tie
yeah.
everybody in with the same brush. I mean, everyone should be able to demonstrate and protest.
Everyone should be able to form their own opinion as well. And that's
Yeah,
what one of the things which frustrates me a lot is people, they base their opinions off what says in the Sun or on
yeah,
Sky News, and I
exactly.
just think
Daily Mail and
all those places have got their own agenda. They're trying to manipulate certain things, and I get frustrated because I think that's if you want to have an opinion, great. I encourage all people to have an opinion on everything,
now,
but
what do
like
you think
but
about
based it on
this?
facts. Like, don't base it
Yeah, what do
on.
you think about all this sort of taking the knee at the football, like these
I
international
don't.
things?
Well,
What's
funny
your
enough, we talked about this recently on the football show, and like I said at the start, I kind of got it, making a statement or whatever against anti-racism and stuff like that. But I think now it's it's not, because you've got like Wilfred Zaha is not doing it because he
yeah,
thinks it's meaningless.
yeah,
So I'm sure he's not the only player who thinks that either.
yeah,
So when you've got the players who think it's meaningless and it's just a pointless gesture, then how can you expect the fans to not get frustrated with it and
yeah,
buy into it? And I don't know, and like I just feel like there's it's a difficult subject, isn't it? Because like you see on a weekly basis, some of these young footballers, like black footballers and Asian footballers and things like that, the abuse, the racial abuse they
yeah.
take
It's
in
awful. Yeah,
their on their Instagram messages, frightening. Like, and like people like me and you, we don't really, we can't really understand that.
no,
But equally, I don't think the taking a knee thing is doing anything to stop that.
yeah,
So, and I just think it's causing more division because you've already got players refusing to do it, you've got clubs refusing to do it, you've got
yeah,
fans booing it in certain
yeah.
places, and it just becomes this. It's not doing what it's designed to do,
No,
which is be a statement against racism. So
yeah,
you need to stop it, go
yeah,
away, and find something else which is going to make
yeah.
that statement.
But also, yourself and kids and all that go to watch a football match. I don't think they want to,
Get
they
involved
go
in
to watch
politics.
football
Yeah,
to get away from all this sort of stuff. And now, politics is entering into football matches, and people are just like, "Oh, leave off! Come on, look, this
yeah.
is hitting us from every." But again, it's what you said earlier on, really, that this rule, Johnson and these Tories and all these. I mean, I swore I wouldn't get involved in the
Mm.
political aspect on this interview, sort of thing, and it. But they seem to, the more they can create this division in people, this right wing press and all that, talking about Jeremy Corbyn's and talking about Keir Starmer's, and they're loving it because they're I mean, this Dominic Cummings thing is the maddest thing
Mm.
that's happened. If you think back to how it all started, and almost like the Ipcris file, when they was doing them sort of Facebook posts for Brexit and all that. I mean, it's crazy. People should see through all that and then
They
just
should, but they don't. It's the
No, they
sad
don't,
thing,
mate.
innit? But
They,
like, it's exactly right what you said. It's like when people go, especially like after COVID and stuff. Like people now, they just want to get back to going to the football,
the
having a
gigs,
day out
yeah,
and
yeah.
gigs and stuff like that. They don't want to think about COVID. They don't want to think about politics and elections. And the thing is, where people have been stuck at home, that's all they've had is bombarded 24 hours a day on the news, on the radio,
Oh,
COVID, Boris Johnson, this, that, and the other, and people are sick of it. And it's
can we
like,
go on holiday? Can we not go
yeah,
on holiday? Can we get out of the country? Can we not go out of the country? It's just bollocks, mate.
never ending, mate. So just to finish us off, mate, what I wanted to kind of talk to you about was a little bit about your book and
Yeah.
just some of your influences and stuff, and people who've helped you kind of get to where you are and helped you along the way with your acting. Maybe
Yeah.
people who've inspired you or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the book is called Hi Diddle Dee Dee, and you can get it on Amazon if you just put Hi, like Pinocchio, that song, Hi Diddle
Yeah,
Dee.
yeah.
And that, but I left the actor's life for me out of it. So
Hmm.
it's just Hi Diddle Dee Dee. And I'm told it's an interesting little read, really, and an engrossing little read. So, and a
Well,
lot of the questions that you're asking me now is in the book.
yeah,
My
yeah.
inspirations, the people that. I mean, my main inspiration was a person called Adrian Jackson, who was in charge of that first theatre company that I walked into in Bermondsey. He's now got an OBE,
Mm.
and his company is called Cardboard Citizens, which is sort of were formed to help homeless people get into acting, sort of thing. It's quite a big thing. And then even people like Jeff Bell inspire me, because I remember when we was first working with each other and all that, I used to sit and watch Jeff do his close-ups, and it was just like, wow,
He's
he
such a good actor, though, isn't he, as well?
and
Like,
you take the close-ups of him, and then you've got people like my wife, who's a massive inspiration, and she's had to live with this for like 30 years, because when I started acting, that was it. Everything else went down the window, and it was
mm.
just poverty after that, trying to get jobs, trying to network acting, trying to do all this. So my wife, my kids, and I don't know, just Nick Love has been a massive, massive uh, a massive friend and a massive. Ken Loach. I've done a film with Ken Loach, and to work with Ken Loach and just to watch Ken Loach work
Mm.
was awe-inspiring as well. So yeah, they're my inspirations more than anything.
Who like obviously you've worked with some of the biggest British names, biggest names in acting. Like who would you say you've learned the most off over the years?
I think it was Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel.
Mm.
I've done a little two-hander with him, and it was quite funny, and it was just like we was doing this piece, and he couldn't remember his lines. He just couldn't remember his lines in any way, and so I knew the director, and I looked at the director, and I started forgetting my lines because I'd never forgot my lines, but I started doing it on purpose, sort of thing,
Yeah.
just to try and take the strain out of it, sort of thing. So we managed to finish the little piece that we'd done and all that. And as we was walking out the gate, Harvey's wife sort of come up to me, "Hey Harvey, how you doing?" One of these like proper LA.
Yeah, yeah.
How was it? How was it all going? He went, "Yeah, it was great, but the kid keeps forgetting his lines." So I'm like, "I'll leave." Trying to do him a solid, and I'll get the sort of blame for it. So I learned, that in years to come, be aware of all that sort of
Yeah.
soft brain stuff, sort of thing. But it was a funny. That's a memory that stick with me all the time because Keitel was someone that ever since I first watched Taxi Driver, that scene
Yeah.
outside the brothel when what he does with De Niro, just that little scene alone, he just makes it fantastic, you know.
Yeah,
And
the
I love
intensity
it.
of it, isn't it?
Well, just that, just being in control of that acting. And Brando is my favourite actor of all time. You know, Marlon Brando. I mean, one of the first movies he ever made was called A Streetcar Named Desire. You know, and it's just an acting lesson in itself. The movie, you know.
Yeah. Is there like a film you've done which you like you look back and that's your favourite role you played, or just as a
Yeah, The Firm.
you really like that one? Yeah,
I really
I
like
could
The
see why
Firm.
as well.
I like The Firm because it wasn't. It was on many levels, you know. It was on many levels. You could get the violent sort of side of it if you want to watch it, and you want to be one of them sort of knuckle dragging sort of football thugs, or you can watch it on another level. You know, there's
Yeah,
about
yeah,
three different levels that you can watch that, and I'm really thankful for Nick for letting me have that. I mean, there's been a few, you know, but I think that one stands out for me really as a piece of work that I've done, you know.
absolutely. Yeah, and I can see that. What about in terms of work which you've got come out now? You mentioned you've got a couple of films which
Yeah,
you've
I've got a big.
done.
We've got this mod film coming out
Oh, is
called
it?
To Be Someone, which has got all the original cast of Quadrophenia in it, you know, and
Oh, nice.
it's a beautiful film. Ray Burdis directed it, and I think that's coming out sort of. It's supposed to be coming out this month. I don't know. It's supposed to have been out last year, but
Yeah.
obviously due to all the crap that's going on. And then I've got the Last Foot Soldier film that we done to come out, you know. So yeah, hopefully they'll be out this year. And I've got, like I said, a script waiting to shoot, really, which I've written.
All right. Okay. Can you tell us
So
anything about that?
yeah, we've got this little script going. It's about a paedophile abducting a special ops daughter sort of thing, and it just this journey sort of challenging journey happens while he's doing it, you know.
Yeah. Look forward to that, mate. So
Yeah,
is that so you've written that? Is that something you want to do a lot more of as well? Is writing your own stuff?
well, I'm writing a western at the moment. I'm writing an 8 episode western as well, which
Okay.
I'm hoping that Netflix picks it up, sort of thing. It's a beautiful little piece, really, about three criminals in the 18th century that have all got the death sentence for certain crimes, and they escape and they make their way over to America, and it's a
Yeah.
cowboy sort of thing. It's quite funny, really.
Yeah. So what about you mentioned your son's in a band. Give us a
Yes.
quick little talk about that. Because
Yeah, he's in a little band called Comforts, and you can find them on sort of Spotify and Instagram. But they've got a beautiful little page on Facebook called Comforts Music. That's the page on
yeah.
Facebook. They've got fantastic little band, really, really great little band, and they're all proper musicians as well. They all went to music university, you know, and got first degrees in music. And they've got this little indie sort of pop, but not sort of pop
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of thing, like an indie psychedelic sort of pop. Not psychedelic, just an indie. I'll send you some of their tracks.
I've seen some of them, mate, on your Facebook page, and
Yeah, I don't know.
I
I
like
don't
it,
know
mate.
how to describe them really. They're just a great little songwriting band with good songs. You know, the original songs that we need to get back to. I think.
Yeah, 100%. I'll put links to their stuff in the
Oh, that's
description, and
brilliant.
I'll
Thank
put
you.
links to like your stuff as well, obviously,
Yeah,
in
thank
the
you, man.
description. But yeah, because I've had a few bands on, and that's something I'd like to do more of is get bands on. I had the Crooks on about
Yeah,
probably 18 months
good little
before
band, man.
COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
and
little band.
I had them on, and at the time they weren't sort of signed to anyone, and then we done like a good little interview, and they played a song at the end, and it went really well. and I've sort of kept in touch with a couple of them and that, and I kept in touch with their management company as well, and then about a couple of months after they done that interview, they sort of signed this deal in America and all this stuff, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
But their management company hit me up a couple of weeks back and said, "Oh, we got another band," and because I had the Crooks on,
Yeah.
at the time some people wouldn't have them on and stuff. He said, "Oh look, I want you to have, if you want to do it, you can have Honey Motel on. They're really good. They're upcoming." So I had them on. And the Crooks are coming back on now in I think a month, or in July sometime. I might have to edit that because I'm not supposed to tell anyone yet.
Just edit. But if you ever want, I mean, they're on their way now, this little band. They haven't been a band for too long, but they're just, they've been gigging before COVID. They was doing lots of gigs. They've just made this smashing EP. And if you ever sort of get lost for a guest or whatever,
mate, not even that. If they want to come on and have a chat, like
they'd love it.
Have a chat, mate. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
they'd love to do it.
We'll sort it out, 100%.
Yeah, brilliant, Simon.
Eddie, mate, I could sit here and talk to you for hours and hours, mate. That's the thing, innit? But look, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I already know people are going to really enjoy the chat we've had. To the people, thank you for watching, downloading this series. I've been really happy. It's all self-funded, self-edited, do it all myself, and I've been really happy with the numbers and how it's grown. And to finish off the series with the legend that is Eddie Webber, I'm very happy with that. So you can check out Eddie's films, check out his son's band. Links to all of that's in the description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Ace Podcast Nation on YouTube. Click that bell for notifications.
Subscribe.
Absolutely.
You need art. Everyone needs your help, man.
That's it. Got to back it. And I think that's the main thing. And it is getting people, like, there's people watch and listen and download, and it's getting those people then to come back and keep coming back and follow, whether it's bands or YouTube channels or podcasts, whatever it may be.
Yeah, man.
Today's the people who have been hurting in the COVID era because they've been stopped from doing their art and their creativity. So hopefully this is the beginning of getting back to normal. But Eddie Webber, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, man.
Cheers, buddy.
Of the world. When I hear him come like my fuse and then ba-bum. Later, see you later, I'm about to blow this up. You can sing or sing if you want, I know you want it. It's always kind of funny, yeah, cause you know I'm a superstar in the sky to lead you on. Haters gonna hate, it's a proof of how they love. They can bring me down, nah. They are jealous of me and my umbrella, yeah, they love me so. This is me, I'm so royal, and you all wanna be round. Yeah, you all wanna be round. A champion, a champion.